Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Overcoming Depression and Anxiety, brought to you by Healthy Me Summits. I'm Joanna Rushton, your host, and we are being joined here today by Tania de Jong. Tania is a leading Australian soprano, award-winning social entrepreneur, creative innovation catalyst, spiritual journey woman, and global speaker. She founded Creativity Australia and Creative Universe, and works with disadvantaged communities through the With One Voice Choir social inclusion programs. A very warm welcome to you, Tania. Thank you so much for making the time to join us.
Thank you so much, Joanna. It's a pleasure and an honour.
Oh, that's very kind of you.
Love what you're doing.
Well, I think that it's an interesting subject to talk about the relationship between music and singing and how that actually helps to overcome depression and anxiety and actually helps to improve our mental health. And probably not a very common place for most people to actually think of when they're looking at ways to improve their mental health. They tend to go to the nutrition or the therapy first.
Yes.
So before we get into the actual nitty-gritty and the neuroscience of singing, what I'd love to connect our audience with is just a little bit about how you've decided to go from a career in singing to actually using music to help others heal themselves.
Yeah, well, so I still, of course, do sing professionally all over the world, and I love what I do. I mean, I'm the luckiest person in the world to be able to share my voice with diverse people everywhere. And it's in that journey of finding my own unique creative voice that I've realized that a lot of people are silenced and are not expressing their true creativity and what their true purpose and meaning in life is. And I was silenced myself. When I was 14 years old, as you know, I was told by my best girlfriend never to bother having singing lessons, and I believed her. So for 2 years I did backstage, and then I did audition for the chorus of the musical Oklahoma, and to my amazement I got the lead role in the school musical, and really that has defined my whole life. But most people have that same message from either a friend, a parent, or a teacher at school, and from that point on they believe that they are not able to sing or be creative or whatever it is. I mean, usually it's it's particularly around singing. We have this real stigma around singing in Australia and more globally as well. And a lot of people, I would estimate about 85% of people have been told not to sing or that they can't sing by someone in their lives, usually fairly early on in their life, which affects the whole rest of their lives. And it's a real tragedy for people not to actually sing, because singing is like the super drug. It really is. I mean, if we're talking about a world in which there's greater uncertainty and complexity, there are more and more people who are becoming disadvantaged. They can't keep up with the pace of change. And our mental health is definitely getting worse. People do feel more isolated. There's more loneliness. There's more, more domestic violence, child abuse, divorce and separation, and all sorts of other issues which are challenging people, not to mention just the overwhelming information that hits us on a daily basis and takes us away from our true heart, our true spirit, and our true creative self. And so it really is very, very important. So through my work, my own performing, and then setting up, so I first set up the Song Room 16 years ago, which has brought music and arts to hundreds of thousands of disadvantaged children and schools in Australia to improve their educational outcomes and their self-esteem and communication skills. And through that work, I then set up Creativity Australia 6-7 years ago to enable any person of any age and any background to find their true voice in life. And so what we actually do is bring together people like us, fortunate people, doctors, lawyers, psychologists, teachers, with migrants, job seekers, people with depression and disabilities, aged 9 to 90, all faiths, all backgrounds, together in these weekly choir programs. And not only do we experience the incredible benefits of singing, which I will talk further about, and the neuroscience of that, but we share supper and we share a wish list program. And through the wish list program, people are able to make wishes to one another for what they need in life. It might be help with a resume, a job, finding a friend, a fridge, learning English, learning how to use the internet. And instantaneously, as these wishes are read out or spoken out, people start to put up their hands and say, I can help with that wish or that one. And that's resulted in hundreds of people connecting to work experience and jobs. We've had marriages. A lot of people have been able to stop taking antidepressants or anti-anxiety drugs and other things because they just feel safer. They feel like they're part of something that matters and they feel like they're being heard. And that's very, very important. We have huge challenges in our community at the moment, and I'm sure this will continue, where we have a lot of incredible diversity. You know, we have issues around a lot of racism taking place and so on. And these issues are not going to go away unless we actually acknowledge that every voice matters and that we are all connected and we need to support one another. And at the end of the day, as human beings, we have a lot more in common than we have different. We tend to focus on what separates us rather than building bridges between us. So all the work that I do really is about connecting the dots, building bridges between diverse people and helping to empower people's voices and themselves so that they feel a stronger sense of their own identity.
You know, one of the things that you've said there, and you mentioned a couple of times through, you know, words such as connecting back to our true self and a feeling of connectivity. And I know that the research, and I've heard you speak about it as well, that, you know, music and song has been used literally since the beginning of mankind, and that it's actually ingrained into our survival mechanism. Can you explain a little bit about that? Because I think that's at the roots of why we have so much neuroscience to show.
Well, that's right. So since ancient times, tribes and peoples have sung and danced together, and that's been to build their group and their sense of community and to ward off their enemies. And so, you know, it stands to reason if we sing and dance together, we're going to be stronger. But unfortunately, we've lost a lot of that. And what's happened is technology is very captivating and, you know, and we get all this information and we just don't have time to connect back often into what really matters. And also what happens is through not only technology, but through a variety of, you know, different, I guess, distractions and our own work, we tend to focus most of our energies on the left-hand side of our brain, or that's where we tend to operate from. And yet our brain is a giant battery, and it's the right side of our brain which is known as the charger. And so if we keep on using the left side of our brain, but we're not charging up the right side of our brain, which is our creative, intuitive side of our brain, we end up getting very stressed, burnt out, depressed, anxious, and so on. So we have to spend a lot more time in the right side of our brain and doing things that actually charge up our batteries. Now, singing is absolutely one of those things, and I'll talk a little bit more about what some of the neuroscience is saying about singing in a moment. But it's not just singing, as I said, it's dancing, it's meditating, it's going into nature, to the ocean, walking with your dog, hugging your loved ones. These are all things that take you back into your heart and into a place where you actually feel part of this universe, not some separated being that is somehow operating in a bubble and isn't part of everything else, you know. And it's when we separate ourselves and start to create divisions between people and we don't connect enough into nature, animals, people, and so on, and our own creativity, that we start to really lose a sense of ourselves. And that's very unhealthy, and of course that's what leads to depression, anxiety, and suicide in its worst form, and just a sense of being socially isolated and alone, whereas actually we're never alone. I don't believe we're ever alone.
No, I absolutely agree with you too. I think the illusion of duality is one of the greatest illusions that man is here to overcome and really lift the veil on that illusion.
Yeah.
Before you delve into some of the neuroscience and a little bit of the understanding between the biochemistry and how singing and music works with the biochemistry of the brain, I was reading actually on your website that it wasn't so long ago that the Western world actually, a good 80% of people would be involved in some sort of singing or music, and that statistic has gone down to 5%, which is
Wow.
a massive,
Jeez.
massive drop.
I don't even
And
know if I've read that article, but that's tragic, isn't it?
it is, it is. And so,
Yeah.
given what you've just said, it stands to reason that, that could be a big contributing factor to seeing the raise in levels of depression and anxiety when you consider what you've just mentioned about how important it is to feel part of a community, part of a tribe, and that there's a
Yeah,
sense of connecting and a sense of belonging.
that's right. No, look, I think it's really sad. And part of that is as a result of the education system because, even though the Song Room, the previous charity which I founded is doing great work in this space and as are other people, compared to what there was, say, 20, 30 years ago, kids sang the ABC songbooks. I have people who are older than me who tell me this historically all the time. And you just sang every day. You sang these songs. It was just part of what you did. And there wasn't this sort of thing of, oh, but I can't sing. Oh, I sing out of tune. I'm tone deaf. The amount of people who I say to me tone deaf, there's no such thing as tone deaf. Like it's just not. It's ridiculous. Like there's probably one in 100,000 people who are actually tone deaf. Like it's. But people also because of the rise of celebrity, there's songs, there's shows, talent shows like The Voice, X Factor, and all these sorts of shows, which in one way are very good because they do encourage a lot of young people, probably many of whom do have mental health issues, to really find a focus and purpose in their lives. But then on the other hand, a lot of other people see those programs and may see someone being ridiculed or made fun of or whatever. And so then again, there's another message saying, oh, well, unless you're actually at this level, then you shouldn't be singing at all. That's ridiculous. It's like one of the reasons, well, we've just set up, as you mentioned briefly, this challenge called Sing for Good, which is a little like creating the next Movember, except for it's not moustaches and furry hair on faces, but it's about getting two or more people from any workplace, school, club, family singing together a song of their choice that means something to them, videoing it, putting it online, and then getting their friends and networks to vote and donate to their entries to support people in need. Because, of course, our programs do support people in need, and we're also partnering with a number of charities who they're co-fundraising entries with us for their charity and so on. And so the idea, though, is to create massive awareness at a global level of the neuroscientific benefits of singing for your brain, for your health overall, for building communities, your creativity, and just to give people permission again to say, hey, it's fine. We want you to sing. It's great. You're allowed to sing. You don't have to be, the voice. I mean, we all have a voice and our voice is unique and every voice I think is beautiful and special.
So what exactly is the neuroscience telling us about, if we've got people who are tuning in and they are suffering from depression, anxiety, and they're listening to the potential of how music and song can uplift their emotions,
Yeah.
what's the science behind that? Why should they listen?
Yeah, so there's a massive amounts of research now, and people can go to our website, Creativity Australia, and see there's numerous articles and research studies and documents done. And we've also started doing some research in this space as well with Swinburne University on the effects of our program. But in particular, the neuroscience shows that when you sing, and particularly when you sing with other people, the right temporal lobe of your brain fires up, making you smarter, healthier, happier, and more creative. You're releasing oxytocin, and there's been studies of people done before and after singing sessions that have showed that their mood has lifted dramatically after singing sessions. So singing, particularly with other people, helps people to improve memory, language, concentration. It helps to heal people from strokes, improves and, helps people recapture some of their memory if they've got Alzheimer's. And certainly there's some very, very good evidence around anxiety and depression and singing. And we see it on a weekly basis. I mean, I have seen numerous people who have multiple complex issues. You know, they may be looking for a job, they may have a disability and depression. They come into the With One Voice program, they find friends, they start to experience the wonderful brain neuroscience benefits of singing, they start to get their wishes granted, they feel like they're part of something, and bingo, all of a sudden, a voice that was pretty silent and quiet when they came in is speaking up. And not only do they start to find their own voice and often find jobs and friends and so on, but actually then they start to help some of the people who are less fortunate than them. And we create this circle of reciprocity that is really powerful and very positive. There's also other studies that show that when people sing together, not only do they breathe together, but actually their hearts start beating together. And I talk more about this too on my TED Talk, how singing together changes the brain, which has been viewed a lot of times now. And actually, as a result of that, we've had inquiries for With One Voice programs from all over Australia and many other parts of the world. We've had people set up programs in Holland and people looking at starting up programs in the United States. And
Wow.
it's very
Fantastic.
exciting.
So I'm
But
hearing...
it's also very important.
Absolutely, absolutely. What you do is incredibly empowering, to individuals and communities as well. And in what you've just shared, I've kind of heard a couple of key messages there. One being that we get a lot more out of music and song when we actually come together and we do it in group as opposed to singing by yourself, which,
Yeah.
if you're shy, in the shower in the morning is a good place to start.
It is. No, it is. And we say about our Sing for Good campaign, we're saying shower singers, it's time to shine. So singing in the shower and singing in the car is good. There's absolutely no question of that. The neuroscience does show that when you sing with other people, that's even better for you. And quite frankly, to all those people who are out there going, oh no, there's no way I could ever do that. When you're singing with a group of people in a choir, you can't even hear your own voice. It's like, it's about everyone. It's about coming together in harmony, hearts beating together and, no one's listening to your particular voice.
So I'm really interested about the reference that you make between the heart and the mind becoming one as you start to sing. Is there science that has backed that as well?
So, there was a study done that showed that hearts do start to beat together. And there's no doubt about it, when you start to sing, especially with very diverse people, and that's the difference in our model, say, to a choir of hard knocks or a normal choir model. The choir of hard knocks or that kind of model is more for one particular group of disadvantaged type of people. A normal corner choir in your local suburb is more tending to be white Anglo-Saxon, predominantly women or sometimes, men, but generally more women do sing. But when you bring together very, very diverse people, it's like, in a sense, we all start to realize actually we're so much more, as I said before, more similar than we are different. And when you actually sing next to someone perhaps who has a serious disability or who doesn't speak English at all, you think, well, actually, I could be that person who's struggling to fit into this community. I could be that person who's, with refugees who've seen their own siblings massacred in front of their eyes. I could be that person. And it starts to give you a sense of how lucky you are. And as I said before, I mean, with some of the disadvantaged people in our choirs, they also start to realize, I also can make a difference. And once you start to make a difference to other people, it really does, it becomes a heart-centered activity as well. And the singing is not just about, your throat or your mouth or whatever. I mean, as a singer, and we all are singers, our body is our human instrument and our body sings, and it's not just here, it's actually our whole body, like from the tips of our toes. Really, I say sing through from Mother Earth to Father Heaven. And you're singing through every cell of your body. And when I sing, and I know you've heard me sing, it's like every cell in my body is singing, and my voice is being amplified through all the different amplifiers that we as human beings have. And that's our chests, through all different parts of our head and stuff. It's just not this little bit of us. And when we start to embody or find a stronger sense of ourself, more of our whole body does actually start to sing and express itself. It's not just from the neck up, you know? And this is one of the other things that I think is very important to acknowledge is that we tend to live a lot of our lives just in our heads, and that's very left-brained generally. But when we connect more to our hearts and the right side of our brain, it becomes much more about the energy that is not just us, but all around us. And we start to tap into a universal energy field, and that is very empowering for people. Because you start to think, actually, anything's possible.
Absolutely. There's so many levels to what you've just shared. We could go to so many different aspects of what you've just shared, and to see ourselves as this instrument, and as you say that when sound moves through our cells, it activates those parts of ourselves, those antennas. If you're into yoga, people will perhaps know the name chakras, and
Yes.
will recognize that those are certain energy centers, all of which get activated when we start to sing and when we start to use
That's
sound.
right. Yeah, and singing does very much. I mean, one of the really great things about singing, and it's really like not difficult to sing at a reasonable level. I can assure everyone out there, I made a lot of my board members join with One Voice choirs when we first started the charity. They said, "Oh, we'll just do this a while to help out some of the less fortunate people." Well, 5, 6 years later, they're still singing every week. And many of them hadn't sung for, 20, 30, 40 years since they were at school, or some of them hadn't at all. And after 3 or 4 weeks, once you're in a choir or group singing, actually you do start to tune in. It's really quite remarkable. We are designed to tune in with other human beings. We're not designed to, float around in our little bubbles and be separate from other people. We are designed to connect. And I hear people come in, they may not sound terrific the first time. There's no judgment though. We have no auditions. It's not about that. But it's amazing after 2, 3, 4 weeks. Amazing after a year, like they're belting it out. And singing is also very much, as you say, our chakras. It is very much about lining up the spine. And when you sing, really the only difference between singing and speaking is that you're sustaining sound. And the way that you sustain sound is by elongating the exhalation of your airflow. So you inhale properly, not up in your shoulders, but down. And we can talk about this perhaps in another program, but, breathing down at the base of your ribs all the way round. And then you gradually like exhaling. And you can actually feel that as you exhale, your belly button goes in and there's this column of air which is coming up, coming out through here. But actually when you make sound, all these resonators throughout your whole body really are resonating. And if you're singing with your whole body and your whole heart, that's what happens.
It is. It's a beautiful experience to be, listening to a whole choir where you can feel the vibration going through your body.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Even when I sing, like as a soloist, I know people say to me, "Oh my God, I felt that through every cell of my being. I got shivers up my spine," and because actually we're tuning in.
Absolutely, and we're a tuning fork ourselves.
Oh, I was just about to say that exact word. Exactly.
There we go. We're on the same page of music.
Definitely. Well, and this is very much about getting people onto the same song sheet, If we could all just be a little more together on the same song sheet, we'd be more likely to create a more peaceful and harmonious society and be much happier.
Absolutely. And, I'm curious, just around, and I don't know if there's been, research around this particular area, but let's say somebody still is in a place of, deep depression, and the thought of actually singing at this particular point isn't, just isn't an option or a consideration. Can the listening to music, and if so, is there particular types of music that can stimulate the right-hand side of the brain again, more so than the left?
Yeah.
Or?
Yeah. I mean, listening to music is also extremely important. And there are studies, and we have some of them on our website too, around listening to music. I mean, obviously, participating and doing music is extremely good. I mean, not only is it good for you mentally, but it's also good for you physically. Like when you stand to sing, I didn't mention that before, but your posture improves, your blood flow improves. Yes, your heart rate does slow down and all these things. So it's very good for you. Your blood pressure goes down and so on. Listening to music is also outstandingly good, and I actually recently released my first solo CD this year called Heaven on Earth, which is really a CD which is designed to get people into a very right-brained, meditative headspace and take people away from, you transcend the usual day-to-day, cares and worries, take people into a heavenly, you know, beautiful headspace. And it has a lot of the great classical works by Beethoven, Mozart, Fauré, Dvorak, as well as some wonderful standards. The reason I mention those composers is because when you listen to classical music, there is a certain pattern and something metaphysically amazing about some of the really great classical works. I think there was a book called The Mozart Effect, which talked about the incredible meter and the symmetry, I guess, of Mozart's music, that when you listen to these classical pieces, again, I find that I just feel this incredible harmony with the universe, as opposed to rock or pop music, which I tend to find quite intrusive on my brain, and I feel I actually do get a headache when I listen to a lot of that kind of music. And I don't want to sound like, I'm an old fogey or anything. It's not that. I mean, like I appreciate, contemporary artists and there's also some contemporary artists doing some very beautiful spiritual and wonderful world music and other things. But when I hear certain types of pop or rock music, I don't find that peaceful. I actually find it angry, and sort of it feels violent to my brain and my soul. When I listen to very beautiful classical music, it feels peaceful and harmonious. That being said, of course, there's also classical music that I find, some contemporary classical works and even movements of, some great symphonies. You do have to pick the right movement. I always say to people, the adagios, the adagettos, the slower movements are the ones that tend to really get you into a heart space rather than the faster movements of classical works. The other thing that's also good to listen to is mantras. So I did another CD called Soundsations with an ex-Buddhist monk, where I improvised over some of the Indian mantras. And by the way, people can get these CDs off my website, taniadejong.com, TANIADEJONG.com, which I'm sure you'll have up there. And yeah, I mean, mantras also have a certain sort of pattern to them, a repetition to them, that takes you into a more trance-like state, so that you're not in your day-to-day worried space, and it helps you to stop your thoughts, your ruminations, your delusions, and all these things coming up all the time.
And, mantras are such a beautiful thing, because we can just start by mantraing them in words in our own mind and then move into singing them.
Well, that's right. And, the simple om, that sort of, just that simple sound, if you start to feel it through your whole body. And there's a wonderful book actually called The Alchemy of Voice by Stuart Pearce that I find really good. It talks a lot about the basic vowel sounds and how they can affect different emotions and so on. But yeah, I mean, it's just, I think, we're at a time and place where we do need to have moments of escape, where the escape is not drugs, it's not alcohol, it's not technology, and ideally, wherever possible, we're not just taking Western drugs, we're actually using therapies that are something that gives us great joy. It's not just taking a pill or a supplement, as you said at the start. It's something that actually brings us back to ourselves and connects us with other human beings.
Perfect. So coming towards the, the end of our beautiful conversation and just pulling all the information together, what would be perhaps your top 3 tips or recommendations that you would give to somebody who's, never sung before, think that they're tone deaf, now they've just listened to what we've said and are buying into the possibility that it could actually have a positive impact on their mental and emotional health? What would be the top 3 things to get them started?
Well, join a With One Voice choir if there's one near you, or start one up, or encourage some people in your communities to start one. We're actually creating a how-to guide to enable people in any community, anywhere, to start a With One Voice program in their community. So that could be conductors, it could be community leaders or others. If not that, join any other choir, because that's still good. Ideally, it depends a bit on what you want to do, but it is good to be in choirs that don't have the requirement, if you don't read music, to read music, so that it's good to go into a choir where you're learning by ear and repeating, because that's also good for your brain. It's better than, it's more right-brained and less left-brained than if you're actually reading the notes of music. Of course, for all of you out there who, love the idea of choral singing, the Messiah or Handel or whatever, well, absolutely go for it. So the second thing I think is to connect with diverse people on a regular basis. I call this positive human collisions. So connect with people who are different from you on a regular basis and start to just go outside your normal comfort zones. And you'll find that you actually have a lot more in common with people than what you thought. You'll find new friends. It'll start to spark your thinking, so that you'll start to be more creative and innovative. And who knows what will happen as a result of that. So that's one of the great things about With One Voice, is that we bring together diverse people and the neurosciences singing into the same thing. Thirdly, absolutely join our challenge, Sing for Good, because that's easy to do, and it's part of a big global campaign. Oh, I don't think I mentioned before, but the goal is to support people with depression, disabilities, job seekers, migrants, etc. And so we hope to create a global movement out of that. And I think another thing that I always say is never doubt that you can help someone else, and that you often think that you're alone and that you're the only one going through this, but it's amazing how many people are actually going through very similar experiences to you. And again, that's about reaching out and speaking out. And I'd say to people, don't let your voice be silenced. If there's one thing, it's really that, if you've gone through some of your life and you've got these messages like I have and like most of us have, where we've been told not to sing or told we're not creative, and many people have, well, it's not true. We're all creative, we can all sing, and the rest of your life starts right now. And I urge you all to just go out there, sing, speak your truth, don't hold back. You only have one chance.
Absolutely. And I think, there's a really very powerful key message that has been a common thread throughout our whole conversation, and that is, the power of connecting with others and doing things in group actually bring a sense of meaning and purpose back into your life, which quite often is at a root cause of why people are suffering from depression, anxiety in the first place. So
no, absolutely. And there's no doubt that when you actually help someone else, and there's lots of research on this, that when you help another human being, it absolutely changes the brain chemistry. You do feel better about yourself, and you stop being so sort of in that victim mentality of, my life is so bad. It's like, actually, you see other people's lives who are much worse, and you start to really think, actually, my life is not so bad. And, it's very empowering indeed.
Absolutely.
So, our goal and my goal is to change the world one voice at a time.
Yeah, wonderful.
There's my dog right there.
I just got a glimpse of it. Look, just one very last question before we go, and we've asked this of all of our speakers. We're putting together a Healthy Me Summits ebook on affirmations which start with I am. And we're pulling together all of our speakers' I am affirmations and just asking them to contribute something that has been a profound either statement or affirmation that they might have used for themselves or that they would just recommend.
I am grateful.
I am grateful. Well, I'm very grateful to you, Tania, for making the time for this conversation and sharing the information to those that just may not have considered singing and music as an option to really uplift and help them overcome their depression and anxiety in a
And
way.
I can sing. I can sing.
I am singing right now on the inside. So, look, thank you so much for sharing the valuable science behind it as well that encourages those that are perhaps a little bit more skeptic to step forth and really take a look at how powerful it really can be.
I mean, I can honestly say that singing will change your life. I've seen it change hundreds and thousands of lives.
And if people want to enter into Sing for Good, how would they go about entering there?
Yeah. So the two sites that people should definitely look at is the first site is our charity, creativityaustralia.org, org.au, and we are a registered charity. So if there's people out there who also want to donate to us, all donations are tax deductible. For just $500 a year, you can support $10 a week. You can support someone in need and change their life. So that's great. And Sing for Good is www.singforgood.org.
All right, wonderful. Tania, again, thank you so much for your time and sharing the neuroscience of singing. It's been fantastic.
It's a pleasure. Keep singing.
I will. Thank you. Talk soon. Bye now.
Thank you.